Thank you all. Thank you for just joining us for these couple of days and what I know we at the team feel has been fun and just a joy-filled experience to have time in person. I don't know about you, but Zoom gets old. And having the chance to actually break bread together and share stories together and learn and hear prayer requests in person is just super special. Now, I had the joy of trying to paint Where Are We Going with a Million Jobs with our big holy audacious goal on Sunday night. But as our team was thinking about how do we get from here to there, we thought it might be fair if we tried to give you a little bit of a snapshot of what the road ahead looks like at a little more granular level, but not too granular. And we wanted to make sure you understood how were we thinking about these next years to come. So we sort of said what we wanted to do was paint the way between now and, say, the end of 2028, the journey that will get us started on this road ahead and what that might look like. So in order to do that, I thought what you should understand is that as we look at the journey that we've embarked upon and what we think we'd like to make sure we are doing in the next 3 years, is that we're going to make sure that we're focused on 3 anchors for what it is that drives who Talenton is and how we want to approach the market opportunities that the Lord has put before us to invest wisely and be faithful stewards. And those 3 anchors are our core values, a kind of 3-year vision, 3-year picture of where we might be, and then what are the unique things that we believe Talenton brings to you as investors, and what are the unique things that we think we bring to the company leaders that allow us to be faithful stewards? So, as many of you who have lived in the business world will well know, how a business operates is determined by what their core values are. And it's not the core values that are on a sheet of paper, although ours are recorded. It's the core values that we aspire to live by. And we thought it would be important for anyone that is already an investor or any of you that are considering being an investor and joining the Talenton family, we thought it would be really helpful to be very transparent about the values that we aspire to live by. On our best days, we can check all 5 boxes. Not every day gets all 5 boxes checked, but we aspire to live by these 5 values. And I wanted to make sure that we shared with you all, what is this core foundation that everything is built upon? I'll add a personal bit to this story for me. Before we launched Talenton, I was in England, and a man traveled 3 hours to come to meet with me, and he said, "David, is it okay if I share a word with you?" That's not my faith tradition. I'm not used to receiving a word, but I said, "Of course." He said, "David, you are to build the foundation. This is it. Honoring God is number 1. So I hope that all of us share that value. And rather than 2 words, let me read to you. I'm going to share what these mean to the Talenton team, not just with the 2 words there on the slide, but we seek to glorify God in all we do. This is the foundation of our purpose. We commit to aligning our actions, decisions, and stewardship with God's truth, reflecting our faith in both our mission and our conduct. And for every value up here, we have scripture that underlines what it is that we want to cling tightly to. And 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, "So whether you eat or drink or whether you do it all for the glory of God." And DG, I need to do more scripture memorization that I can follow your lead there. Our second value, courageous integrity. We do what is right, not what is easy. We embrace honesty even when it is difficult. We foster open, respectful conversations and take principled stands, trusting God over fear or convenience. In Joshua 1:9, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous, do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And Ephesians 1:9, speak the truth in love. And sometimes I'll just give a little bit background on the value. More times than not, many more times than not, we say no or not yet to potential clients for us to invest in. We want to honor God in our no's as much as our yeses. Truthful conversations foster good outcomes. Two of the companies that were here with us this week, both Kintegra and Kajani, heard no before they heard yes. But we stayed in relationship, and you all got to see the benefit that we all enjoy from living out that value. Our third value, servant leadership. We lead by serving others with humility and empathy, following the example of Christ. We listen well, empower generosity, and put the needs of others ahead of our own to cultivate trust, growth, and shared success. And Matthew 20, verses 26 through 28 says, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. And we aspire to live that out in serving our investor community and in serving our client community. Our fourth value up there, excellence in stewardship. You'd think Talenton with the parable of the talents might have a stewardship value at its core, maybe. We strive for excellence as an act of worship. We pursue the highest standards in our work, diligently, thoughtfully, and with integrity, believing that how we operate matters just as much as what we accomplish. And Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. And our fifth value up there actually ended up being this value a year ago. We had a team retreat following Bringing Hope celebration, and we had the team looking at the values that we had started Talenton with 5 years previously, and we checked ourselves. And they said, partner group, John, Harry, and David, we're missing one. We actually like to have fun working together. And we think that the culture of fun and a community that enjoys being together is really, really important to allow us to achieve the mission that the Lord has set before us. So joyful community is the way we have phrased that now. We cultivate a workplace marked by joy, friendship, and mutual care. We believe that the tone of our team is part of our witness. We intentionally build a culture where people feel known, valued, and uplifted, creating an environment where trust, celebration, and grace thrive. And Romans 12, we've been in Romans 12 a lot these last couple of days. Maybe the Lord's saying that as we leave, we should go read the full chapter. But verses 10 through 12, be devoted to one another in love, honor one another above yourselves, and be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. So that's the first anchor. They're not just slogans, they're not just words. I can say in our performance reviews, we ask each person to say, how well in the past year have I lived out these values? And we discuss those as a management team and how are we living out these values collectively. But rather than just hearing from me, there's a panel here. And I'm going to ask each of my colleague partners to share, first with John, which value do you see as the most important for our investor community as we grow and build momentum?
Yeah, thanks, David. For me, it's easy. I think the foundation for all the others is honoring God. And it's clear in Scripture, there's evidence, there's promises many times over, there's stories, that when you honor God, He's on your side. He's giving you hope, fighting for you, protecting, guiding. Jesus said, in this world you will have troubles. So this doesn't mean you're not going to have troubles. You're going to have troubles. But what did Jesus say next? But take heart, I have overcome the world. When you honor God, you're on the side of the victor, and you're on the side of that solid rock on which we all seek to stand. I had a daily devotion this morning, and it was from the 18th century. I'm a nerd. I like collecting devotionals that are 200, 300, 400 years old. And a woman named Dora Greenwell, who I have no idea who she is, said that whatever God tells you to do, He also helps us to do. He doesn't leave you hanging. And then I was really reflecting on this, Joshua and Deuteronomy 31:8. The Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Joshua was having some fears about the big challenges, the big opportunities that lie ahead. And God gave him this reassurance that it will never leave us or forsake us. But He also went on to say, if you deviate, if you dishonor me as a people group, I'm going to offer grace sometimes for hundreds of years. So it's amazing grace. But eventually it doesn't work. And so therein is the whole idea of honoring God. When we honor God, He is for us, not against us. So for me, that's the foundational value.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
And Harry, could you share which of those values do you think resonates personally with you and for our work in Africa?
Sure. Morning, everyone. So 21 years ago, I moved to Hong Kong, sprightly 34-year-old, something of the age of some of the younger people in the room today. And I joined the board of a charity that was working with people trapped in poverty in the Philippines. And I started traveling back and forward to the Philippines to work with the local teams there to share the knowledge and wisdom that I'd learned in my career to that date with all of these leaders in the Philippines who patiently listened. And then I joined Opportunity and I started traveling in and out of Africa and India and South America, and I joined and participated in a bunch of boards. I spent time with the vast teams that we had on the ground there. And then David asked me into joining Talenton, and I started traveling into Africa in 2016. And I suppose in all of this time and in all of that travel, I started to realize that I knew less than I thought I did. Don't tell the kids that, just by the way.
They already know.
Yeah.
They know everything now, which is good. And so perhaps I'm getting old, but I really kind of came to a conclusion that I really didn't know much at all. And for me, as I've had the privilege of working with the extraordinary leaders of the companies that we work in, I've realised, and I think Christian said this to me last night, I've realised I've learned to listen a lot more and talk a lot less, which for those of you who know me knows how hard that is for me to do. I'm a slow learner.
Can I hold you accountable to that?
Definitely not. So 21 years of learning just how little I know has really helped me to understand how important servant leadership is. And so for me, servant leadership is the most challenging, I suppose, as well as the core value that I think needs to really lead front and centre when you're out investigating and evaluating companies. And I just wrote down, I think it's David's already said this. It's to help me realise how following Christ's example of servant leadership, of listening well, empowering generously, and putting other needs in front of my own is absolutely the best way to operate.
Thanks, Harry. Thanks, John. So that was our first anchor. We think that the foundations, the values drive everything else. So I'll turn to our second anchor, which is our 3-year vision. So we know what the foundation looks like with the first anchor. We want to do what we do with those as our values. But we also thought that 1 million jobs gets a little scary. We might be a little afraid. We're not We were just told by Joshua not to be afraid. But we said, okay, Lord, but can you give us kind of a vision of where might we be 3 years hence, partway toward that vision? And so we wanted to build out some bold goals with faithful steps and measurable progress that if the Lord blesses and others come alongside to allow us to do this, here's what things might look like by the end of 2028. We think that we ought to be halfway-ish toward our goal of that million, so 400 to 600,000 jobs impacted by the types of companies that you've seen already and new ones that are coming into the portfolio even yet this year, we trust. We think that we ought to be aspiring to be targeting 100 million assets under management. That's stewarding your capital, our capital, wisely, growing the amount that has already been invested, and quite frankly, there will be a third fund needed to be launched in this time period. We can't get to the third fund to get to 100 million until we get to 20 million on the Momentum Fund to get the second one closed. But we think within a 3-year window, that's a reasonable expectation for us as a team that trust in the Lord that He will provide the resources to allow us to close the Momentum Fund, and then we'll need another way to bring equity capital to the kind of companies that you've met here, and that means we'll need another way to do that. 30 to 40 portfolio companies. By the end of this year, we may be about 20, so that's one of those big, hairy, audacious goals. 300 to 350 limited partners. That's technically either limited members or limited partners. That's what all of you who have invested thus far are either a limited member in the Impact Fund or a limited partner in the Momentum Fund, or some of you are already both. So we'll need 300 to 350. That's about double. We have about 175 families in total that on average have invested around 200,000, 250,000 on average each, from a low of 25,000 through impact DAF-based investing to our largest investor today has $2 million invested in the Impact Fund, and $1.5 million is our largest investor in the Momentum Fund as we sit here today. So we need to double the number of people that are joining this, and we'll need a bigger team if we're managing that, largely based in Africa. So something that looks like 20 or so team members. But that's not the end. It continues. Part of this has to, what are we doing? So a balanced portfolio across industries, 2 to 3 new countries. We'll be talking with our board later today about yet one new possible country that would be part of the portfolio if a company gets approved there. Documented and simplified core processes. It's not just Eileen that gets to worry about simplifying things at MoCo. We need to do that too. Clear succession plans for the leadership team. We're all getting older. I don't know why, but that seems to be happening.
I'm not.
For us and the board. And excellence in team alignment, right people, right seat. So that's what we see as our 3-year vision. And Harry, I'd just love for you to weigh in with your perspective on what does it mean for Talenton to imagine 30 to 40 companies across multiple industries by the end of 2028, and how might that position us?
Yikes. 30 to 40 companies. Well, 40 companies, I'm imagining that means a lot of work in the next 3 years. So
Sounds exhausting.
yeah, we're going to be busy. Although in truth, as David said, we're nearly at 20. We've got a number of companies in the pipeline at the moment that there's a pretty reasonable chance will approve and potentially deploy to the end of this year. And including a couple of new countries. So we've approved Ghana already. I think I mentioned that yesterday. And we've got a conversation about the Eastern Congo coming up, which is, I suppose, stretching our horizon, which gives us access to a lot more opportunities, actually, the sort of broader the footprint we look for. So the bottom end of this, perhaps the 30 by that time frame, actually feels like a pretty human-sized achievement. We're typically doing 3 to 4 transactions a year. We've done 5 in 2024, so we've got the capacity to do that. The 40 side of that thing over the next 3 years is sort of almost doubling that on a yearly run rate. So it's going to require us to be really super efficient in the way that we process. It will require a few new team members. But for example, we've just gone through a process. I'm not sure, has anyone heard of EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System? So we have just gone through the process of implementing EOS inside the business, and that absolutely has created a real level of focus for us. So it's a business process. Any of those people who put their hand up, if you don't know what it is, please go and put your hands up again, just so you're on the hook for telling people what this process is and how effective it is. So we've seen that to be really good. We've put in place a high-quality project management process so that every transaction we do has a preordained plan. So we know all of the components we need to do in order to get something across the line, so we can be really efficient in that way. But we will need to build a bigger team. There's just no way we can monitor and source new companies with the same size team we've currently got. On the monitoring side, you heard a little bit about this yesterday. We've put in place a monitoring team which has really supercharged our ability to stay up to date. We've put in place a system that aggregates all the data in a really clear way. I was looking for data yesterday and I just pulled open a system called Cosmos, pulled it open, I go, this is the number of jobs, this is how much money we've got outstanding, all of that just in one platform, real time. So that sort of technology innovation is going to be required as well to hit that.
Yeah. Thanks, Harry.
Probably enough.
And John, from an investment management perspective, what excites you most about stewarding $100 million in assets by the end of this time period, and does that change our ability to serve investors with excellence?
Yeah, been reflecting on that question. For me, it's less about the 100 million and more about increased reach and impact, and along with that, returns. Because I think to get to 100 million, the returns are going to be critical. It makes it a heck of a lot easier with investors and fundraising. So those are a critical part of reaching that 100 million by God's grace. Our investors are motivated by their faith. There's so many options out there in private equity, and their prime motive is almost always faith integration. And that's what excites me, is reaching 100 million is a confirmation that people are believing in our mission and putting that against their wallet. So that's the kind of confirmation we love. And what it means is that more leaders ministered to, discipled, mentored over a longer period of time. One thing I love about the Momentum Fund is that we've been building a relationship with a lot of these leaders in the Impact Fund, and the best companies are likely candidates for the Momentum Fund, which means another 5 years of life-on-life ministry. Going through another 5 years of all the ups and downs is just ripe fields for discipleship. And that excites me. It means more jobs created for the least of these. And that's kind of one of the major missional focuses of Talented. And then more investors blessed. I mean, look at this gathering here. And it's just been fun. I mean, it's more investors to get to 100 million means the more the merrier, right? So I'm thinking we'll outgrow this room when we're 100 million, David. And that's going to be, in one sense, really fun. Although, in a sense, when you look out the windows, kind of sad.
Yeah, I'd agree with both of those. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
So that gives you a sense of the vision, at least the midterm vision, the next 3 years, where we might get to. And the third anchor, as we thought about it, in order to do what we do, we need to be doing what we are uniquely called to do, not what some other fund or firm or company has been called to do. We're part of a broad ecosystem, both in the financial landscape for all of you that are wealth managers and for all of you that are investors. You can invest in a whole bunch of places. So we want to clearly understand, what do we think is unique about what we can bring to the table for investors and for companies. So on the investor side in particular, we think that we have a disciplined, world-class investment process that's focused on a particular part of the world. You see in this slide, I've written it as sub-Saharan Africa. I think before that sentence, we've always said East Africa. But you also heard Harry just say, Ghana has been approved as a country for us to invest in if we can find an investable company or more there. And for anybody that remembers at all your African geography, Ghana is not in East Africa, but it is in sub-Saharan Africa. So that is a bit of a change. Spiritually integrated approach, I hope you've experienced that, and we believe that we live that out as well, or better than anybody else that we know in the faith-driven investing space, and we're proud of that, and we want the Lord to keep feeding us to ensure that spiritual integrated approach is part of everything that we do. Some of the lawyers didn't like it when we wrote proven impact through job creation. So for any of you that live in a compliance world, they said, David, proven, oh, that's a hard word to use. And I said, we're standing by it. We believe that it has been well proven by our personal experience and all of the data that when you create jobs, people can work their way out of poverty. And in fact, we would argue that it's the only way to allow people to permanently work their way out of poverty is by having good jobs. So we believe what we bring to an investor is a proven impact to tackling poverty through job creation. And we bring flexibility to our investors. Not everybody thinks that you can have both a debt fund and an equity fund. We thought that both were important. The debt fund, the impact fund has allowed us to start with smaller companies, generally 1 to 5 million in revenue, walk alongside them in those earlier parts of the growth stage that are critically important to having them get to the point where you saw some of those companies today that are this week that are part of our momentum fund, because those companies are now at the $10 million plus or soon will be, and equity is what it takes to get there. We bring both options to investors, be on the more catalytic end in the impact fund or be in the further along growth stage in equity in what we do through the momentum fund. But it's not just the investors here. We need to do things that set us apart in order to serve entrepreneurs and companies well. And we think that we bring creative, tailored investment structures to each one of the investment opportunities that we invest in. We believe that relational trust-based leadership sets Talenton apart. You've already heard, as far as we know, there is not another impact fund in Africa that prays with their clients. We think that's a missed opportunity for anybody that wants to be a faith-driven investor, because it gives us an ability to do life on life, hear what the issues are, not just the business issues, but the personal issues that are impacting leaders, because they're human and they have families and they have struggles, and they bring those to the table, and we're able to bring them not just to the Talenton team, which we pray for them regularly, but to our investor community to lift up a chorus of prayer from our investment community every 6 weeks. We think speed of execution is one of the distinctives that we bring co-investors to the table regularly, and we think the brand equity that we're building through your support in Talenton is critical in allowing us to achieve the mission that we've aspired to do. So John, let me start with you for the questions related to these distinctives. Which of the distinctives do you see most resonating with new investors, and why? And I'll put the investor list back up on the screen here.
Yeah, I think the combination of what David called a world-class disciplined private investment fund with a deep spiritual integration is unique. I like to say that if you remove the word impact or faith from investment fund, from Talenton Investment Fund, that it would still be a worthy investment. We go out of our way to hire world-class recognized service providers that any secular fund private equity investors would appreciate. RSM's our auditor. We have an outstanding Irish, I wonder how we ended up with an Irish fund administrator, EQ. And we have what's considered one of the leading firms in valuation practice area, Stout, verifying and setting up valuation policies. So all of those kind of put us in this category of being a good world-class investment fund, and all the systems that Harry was talking about. But then you combine that with spiritual integration, and sometimes people can't get their head around us. You know, we get asked, are you guys like a nonprofit, when they see our impact stuff? And we get asked it pretty regularly, and maybe that's a marketing issue. But combining the two is unique, and we really want to do both well. So for me, that's what makes us distinct.
Yeah. And I think we've addressed the marketing issue. Thank you, Moses. I think the new website,
the new website is going to go a long way.
Helps to communicate that. Harry, how about you? Let me change slides again here to put the entrepreneur side. What distinctive matters most for the entrepreneurs you've seen on the ground in Africa?
Yeah, I'm going to answer this question, and I know some of them. I saw David Payne had to leave, and so did Bo.
Wow.
So for the others in the room, feel free to track them down and ask them this question as well, because they might answer differently to me. A lot of these distinctives really, really matter. Actually, there's a combination here. Entrepreneurs we serve really generally, they enjoy the deep relational approach that we take. It's something that is distinctive for Talenton. They love the creative structures, particularly when they're in the earlier stages of the sort of growth part of their business, and they're not really sure that they can afford high coupon. We can be creative around the structure that minimises costs in the early stages and delivers return in the late stages. They really love that stuff. But I'm going to single one out that you probably think is odd, and that is, I'm going to say the thing, if I had to choose one, that most of the entrepreneurs really like is speed of execution. A lot of these companies are in positions where they really need money quite quickly to grow. It can really stall growth. They can survive without the capital. I think if you went and talked to Andy at POA, he'd say he really, really, really hates the fact that he's had to slow down the growth of the company in order to wait for the investment that is coming in the next round. So speed of execution is something, and it's really distinctive. If you sit down and talk with those same people and say, the other investors, how long do they take? We think, 3 to 6 months is how long we generally take to do a transaction. Many of you around the room might go, that seems a bit slow. But they're often used to 12 to 18 months as a time frame. So 3 to 6 months feels really fast. And to do a quality due diligence in that sort of time frame means you're not overburdening a company for a long period of time, and it means you're getting money in the door quickly. So that's one I'd say.
Thanks, Harry. So we've talked about the 3 anchors. We've talked about our values and how important they are. We've talked about the interim vision of where might we be, Lord willing, over the next 3 years. We've talked a bit about what sets us apart for both investors and entrepreneurs. But where do we go from here? So I'd like to have you reflecting on that question, but I'd also like to turn back to our panel and get them to give us their personal thoughts on putting these 3 anchors together in how we seek to operate. So Harry, let me start with you. What do the foundation values, the vision, the distinctives for entrepreneurs, what does that mean for you, putting the 3 together?
Well, I think this really matters. It really matters to the entrepreneurs in the countries in which we operate. I can't sort of understate how limited the capital pools are that are coming into sub-Saharan Africa, and at the same time, I can't understate how important it is for people to be standing and walking alongside entrepreneurs. I had the great privilege prior to launching the Momentum Fund to sit down and speak with basically all of the candidate companies that we were thinking might be an opportunity. and asked them, would they be interested if we had another fund that was an equity fund? Most of them were doing capital raises. Would you be interested in us being in your capital base? And it was, and I suppose you're all going to say, of course they said yes. But of course they said yes. But the interesting thing there were several companies that already have significant capital pools lined up that basically said, we're going to reserve your size. We're talking about a $2 million investment is generally too small for the next round, but we're going to make space for you to be in there anyway. Because we just love the way you operate. You really care about us, and you really care about impact. So there's a lot of people who call themselves impact funds, and it really is a lot of lip service to impact funds. So they see us turn up with the work that Iris is doing in Dakotas on the ground as it's going on at the moment in POA or in MOCO. They go, wow, you really mean this? This is not just a tick in the box. So unanimously, the entrepreneurs I spoke to said, we want you in the capital base. Not just because we need the money. Of course we need the money, so we're going to say yes anyway. But more because we need the way you guys operate and how you care for us and actually how you care for the people we're serving.
Thanks, Harry. And John, over to you. Why do these three things matter for global investors of faith?
Yeah, I had an answer that I had in mind, but I'm going to pivot to we had a wonderful table discussion, and I think it's really good for everybody. There was so much vulnerability and sharing in that brief moment we had an hour ago, really wrestling with 1 Chronicle 29, that it all belongs to God. David is really clear, and anything we do ultimately has God at its origin. So it keeps you humble. It's a wonderful, freeing thought. And those questions that you're all asking, and hopefully this has been spiritually enriching, but also challenging, our time together. And I really, truly hope that as you wrestle with those questions, you reach out to one of us or each other. There's a lot of folks that have a lot of wisdom and have maybe gone ahead a few steps or can help you sort things through. We'd love to be part of that. For us, we landed on our table that, and we were talking a lot about the next gen stuff and all the different ways you could go about that. It came down to obedience in God. What are you doing to be obedient to how God is leading you? And that's the same way I feel about talented. God may very well lead you to use your resources elsewhere. So long as you're being obedient, we just want to say, praise God. I think that you're wrestling with those important theological questions and answering those and doing it in a way that God speaks to you. We hope Talenton's a great option, obviously. But that's what I'd love for you to do. Leave spiritually full with those questions, not kind of going into the dustbin, but stay in front and center. And like Eric said, seeking to go to move those into action at some point. That's what would really make me excited.
Thanks so much, John. So friends, we started on Sunday night talking about building momentum. And I hope it's clear to all of you that momentum is not something that we've done. It's something that's been entrusted to us, all of us. We want to make sure we're stewarding that momentum well, based on our values, based on our vision, based on what we can distinctly do as Christian investors trying to impact the least of these by creating jobs in Africa. And that's what we aspire to do. But the question as we begin to think about departing today is, how will each of us respond? I asked you on Sunday night, why are you here? You may have gotten an answer in the last couple of days, and you may not yet have gotten an answer. So either way, I hope you will pray through, Lord, why was I here? Was it something I heard, somebody I met, an idea that came to mind? What was God implanting in your heart that he wants you to act upon? For some of you, we hope, who are investors, that you'll choose to reinvest in one or both funds. For others of you that are potentially joining as investors, we hope that's what he'd have for you. but for all of us, as Michelle shared so well in the devotion this morning. We hope that we will all tell the story of what God is doing in Africa through people just like us that are stewarding capital and to be on the road to impacting 1 million jobs by the end of the decade, or by whatever year it is that God has in store. Let us not be the bottleneck for what he wants to accomplish. Let us be the stewards of what we've been entrusted with. Let us be listening carefully and let God break our hearts by the things that break his heart and act accordingly. So our big, holy, audacious goal is, in fact, 1 million jobs by the end of the decade. That's what we believe the road ahead includes beyond the 3 years that we've just talked about. That's why this gathering is also called the Bringing Hope Celebration, because jobs are not the end. Hope in Christ is the end. The means to that end is what we do. So I thank you all for being part of it. I thank you for all that you've already done and what you will do. And I want to encourage you with what we put on the slide in the title. From vision to action, let's walk it together. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.